Continuing on with the epidermis of our skin, we need to look at the different layers. Now, everywhere in your skin, you have 4 layers, but palms of your hands, soles of your feet, you have 5 layers. So let's look at the list from the deepest to the most superficial. The deepest is the stratum basale. This down here is the stratum basale. You'll notice it's only a layer or 2 thick. It's kind of a thin little layer. It's just superficial, just above the connective tissue. From there, you move up to the stratum spinosum. So stratum spinosum is going to be moving up a little bit higher. Stratum spinosum, we're going to head up to the stratum granulosum. The stratum granulosum, you can see some visual changes starting to occur there. Then we get into the stratum lucidum. This layer is only present if you're in the palms of the hands or soles of the feet. This is the extra layer, the stratum lucidum. And the most superficial is the stratum corneum. Stratum corneum is what you touch when you touch your skin. That's the stratum corneum. So let's start looking at the stratum basale. We already mentioned the stratum basale is the deepest layer. You can see it's right down here, just above the actual dermis. That pink is the dermis. So the stratum basale is the deepest layer you have of your epidermis. It's a single layer of cells, maybe 2 layers of cells. There's really not that much in the stratum basale. Depends on when you catch it going through mitosis actually there. The basal cells, they're all at the bottom. That makes sense because they're sitting at the bottom of the epidermis. Remember apical and basal? This is the basal layer of the epidermis, of the stratified squamous epithelium. I already mentioned mitosis. This is where mitosis is occurring. You'll have one cell dividing into 2 perfect copies, 2 daughter cells. This is how your skin keeps regenerating, at least the epidermis portion of the skin. You're constantly undergoing a high mitosis rate. That's why the skin cells that are being rubbed off or sloughed off aren't a problem, because you're constantly making new ones deeper down in the stratum basale. So you're making new layers, old layers get removed. It's a constant regeneration of this epithelial tissue. So your skin itself is constantly regenerating as your old cells are dying off and being left around. This is also the location where you'll find your melanocytes. Remember, these are the melanin or pigment producing cells, as well as finding your Merkel cells. The Merkel cells are the light touch receptors of your skin. Now, there are more touch receptors as we get down to the dermis, but this is one of the touch receptors found in the epidermis, the Merkel cells here. So we have the melanocytes and Merkel cells found in the stratum basale. If we move from that stratum basale and move up just a little bit, we're up into the stratum spinosum. The stratum spinosum have down here 8 to 10 cell layers. I'm not necessarily worried exactly about how many layers, just know it's multiple layers. It's not that 1 or 2 that you had in the stratum basale. So it's a little more of a thickness compared to the previous stratum. It could be filled with keratinocytes. Well, now I didn't put keratinocytes on the previous one for stratum basale, but those cells there, they're keratinocytes also. That's where the keratinocytes are being produced through mitosis. But now here we just have a thick layering from 8 to 10 cell, give or take, maybe 11, 12, 7. Depends on the cell. Depends on the actual tissue layer. But you have all keratinocytes. The very deepest of these keratinocytes, that very first layer, the one just right in here, just as it comes out of the stratum basale, they might still be dividing, finishing off mitosis, going through the last phases, maybe that telophase, or just getting things reset at that point. But as they move up through those layers, going more superficially, the mitosis will be complete. So the cells will be fully mature and normal functionality. And you'll have plenty of those Langerhans cells found throughout this layer. Remember, Langerhans cells are going to be phagocytotic. They're meant to destroy any foreign pathogens that happen to get into this layer of your skin. So that's the stratum spinosum. Stratum granulosum, that's a little higher up here. If you notice, you'll see a visual change in the stratum granulosum. It's about 3 to 5 cell layers thick. Now, that's not very thick, obviously, but it's still more than the stratum basale. In this layer, you'll see quite a bit of changing occurring because as the organelles are coming in, they're starting to disintegrate, starting to break down. The cells are dying as they go through the stratum granulosum. They'll come into the stratum on the deeper side down here, alive, healthy. But by the time they reach the top here, the superficial side, those cells are dying or dead at that point. That's because the organelles have disintegrated. The cells are starting to flatten down a little bit. What's occurring now is the cells just aren't getting the nutrients, the gases they need. So the cells are basically starting to die off as they go through the stratum granulosum. Then as you get to the top of that stratum granulosum, you'll have this keratinohyaline. The keratinohyaline is helping to make more keratin. So you already have that in the keratinocytes. You're making more. You're also adding in more of a waterproofing aspect. You're going through this lamellation process. The lamellation process is going to help to create a little more waterproofing in your cells. So you have a little more increase in lipid concentration inside the cells. Now, this is all what's accumulating in place of those granules that are dying off. So by the time the cell reaches the top or most superficial layer, you'll have plenty of this keratin in place and have gone through the lamellation process. So it'll be a pretty decent waterproofing on these cells. So looking at stratum granulosum, going through changes as it moves. Once you get above this cell layer, so once you move beyond the stratum granulosum, all the cells are going to be dead at that point. Which means you're either going to the stratum lucidum or you're going straight into the stratum corneum. The reason I'm saying or is because the stratum lucidum is the extra strata. It's only found palms of hands, soles of feet. So that stratum granulosum might go to the stratum lucidum next for palms of hands, soles of feet. But everywhere else in the body, it goes right from that stratum granulosum right up to the stratum corneum. So this one right now we're talking about, the stratum lucidum, is the extra layer. And it's filled with dead cells. It's very flat, very thin. You don't have a lot of thickness here because the cells have really gotten compressed down. All the cells are very densely packed and they're filled with alidin. Alidin is going to be a clear substance that is helping to fill into the extra cells in this layer. So again, palms of hands, soles of feet. So it's located only in those two locations. So again, keep track of this one, palms of hands, soles of feet. So if you're talking about the back of the hand, for example, you don't have stratum lucidum. It's only on the palm of the hand. So literally, palm of hands, soles of feet, that's it. Stratum corneum, you're going to have this superficially on the palms of hands and soles of feet. So you go from stratum granulosum, stratum lucidum, then you go to stratum corneum. But anywhere else, your arm, your chest, your thigh, anywhere else, is going to go right from the stratum granulosum directly to the stratum corneum. Stratum corneum have up to 30 layers of dead flat cells. So we have a lot of layering here. That's because this is the most superficial. When you touch something, you're touching the stratum corneum. By having this high amount of cell layering, it allows the surface to be more durable. As things come into contact, they can rub across, and instead of damaging the living cells below it, the dead cells on the surface can be rubbed off as you go through. So it helps with, one, waterproofing. That goes back down to the stratum granulosum. But two, it's also for abrasion. and penetration of objects. Now, sure, it's not going to stop a knife or something sharp, but simply touching, you don't go right through. It's stopping the entry of those particles. So it's creating this barrier to help protect what's underneath. This barrier of dead, thin cells that are all there to protect underneath. So your skin, really creating this protective barrier to help out what's below. So the different layers of the epithelial tissue, 4 or 5 layers, depending on where you're found. Everywhere has 4 layers, but remember, 5 layers are only found palm of hand, soles of feet. So palm of hand, soles of feet 5, everywhere else has 4 layers to the epidermis.